Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 39 of the Future of Work show. And as you can see, I have with me Miss Anupama Chopra. She really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway, because I am so impressed by just the amount of things that she's done. She's the author of 8 books. And as someone who's just written one, which is right there, I mean, I can only imagine how much work goes into writing 8 books. She is the director of the Mumbai Mami Festival. She is the founder of Film Companion, and she is, of course, a very, very well known film critic. She interviews stars, directors, everybody associated with cinema, both internationally and within India. So, thank you, Anupama, for joining us. I'm so delighted to host you here today.
Shalini, thank you so much for thinking of me and reaching out and inviting me on your show.
No, one of the things I must share, Anupama, is that when I shared that you'd be coming, uh, so many women wrote into me saying just how inspired they are by you. And when I sort of asked them a little more about, what is it that they are most inspired by, I got a couple of different answers. And I'm going to ask you, how you do some of it. So the first really has to do with the fact that, you do so many things. And in fact, a lady who had worked with you a long time ago mentioned to me that you're always on the forefront. Before anyone in the industry has tried something, you've done it. And of course, also congratulations. I know as of today, your podcast is number 3 on the chartable list.
I
So,
was amazed. I'm so thrilled because I love podcasts. And Shalini, when you do a podcast, you're always like, "Koi sun raha hai kya?" Ki I'm just talking.
yeah,
So it's just so nice that people are listening.
it's amazing. So you're number 3. So you do a podcast, you do interviews, you teach as well. And I know that front row is a lot about that as well. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So there's just this huge breadth of what you do, and that's one thing that's impressed a lot of people. A lot of people have spoken about how entrepreneurial you are and how like first in class. If it's out there, you're going to be experimenting with that. So that's one thing. The other thing, Anupama, which many people, and me included, have found really inspiring is that you've always had a very definite voice. So, particularly in an industry where I think, at least from the outside, it seems people are quite careful about what they say and, are quite conscious not to upset people. But your reviews are fairly forthright. You have a voice, you're not scared to use it, and you pretty much say things as you see them. So I was wondering if I could ask you how you do both of these. How are you always entrepreneurial, managing such a wide portfolio of work that you do? And what's the secret behind always knowing what your voice is? Anupama, I think you're.
Shalini,
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
back? Oh, I'm
yes.
so sorry. See, this is why the dongle always needs to be on. I
No, no.
apologize, but we are connected again. Yes, please, you were
Yes,
talking about a
yes.
voice.
Yeah. So both the fact that you're entrepreneurial, you manage a huge volume of kinds of work. It's not just a lot of work in one area, but so many different kinds, from writing books to being a film critic to being a director of a film show to being a founder of Digital Companion, a media company. So it's just a very, very large range of work that you do. So if you could share a little bit about what gets you going with such a wide variety, and of course, how do you always have such a clear voice?
You know, I really, really love the movies and I love storytelling. And I've basically the way my career has evolved is I was trained as a print journalist. I did a master's in journalism from Northwestern University. As and my training was in print. And I worked with India Today magazine for like 12 years. Uh, then evolved to television with a show on NDTV and then went to Star World and then evolved into a digital journalist and somewhere along the way wrote the books as well. But all of it has to do with cinema. All of it has to do with pop culture and entertainment and our relationship with the movies and with what the movies give us. And for me, that's been such an unending source of joy. But I think that the way I've stayed interested and not become jaded with, talking to, I mean, literally, I always laugh about this that, like when I began 25 years ago, I was talking to sort of Sunny Deol and Anil Kapoor and Shah Rukh and the Khans had just come in, and I'm now talking to their kids. I mean, I'm talking to Devi's daughter. I'm talking to like the next generation, and I always laugh and tell my husband that maybe when I have to interview Taimur, it's time to retire. But you can lose interest if it's all the same, right? But I think what's really kept me going is the fact that the mediums have changed, uh, from print to television to digital. The sort of muscle required, and especially the muscle required to write books, is different. So it is in the same ecosystem, but it's a completely different thing. With when I came on board the Mumbai Film Festival, the Geo Mami Mumbai Film Festival, I knew nothing about film festivals except going there as a journalist. And then my learning curve from inheriting a festival which had a 70 lakh debt and no sponsors and building it back brick by brick with an amazing team. None of this I have accomplished on my own. Uh, you know, uh, Taught me so much. And building Film Companion over the last 7 years has taught me an incredible amount. And so I feel like each role, a job that I do informs the other one. You know, because I'm a journalist and a film critic, I can also maybe sort of, I had the contacts to kind of pull in to, jumpstart the film festival. And I feel like now, after working for 25 years, Shalini, I'm in a place where uh, I can connect the dots. And the joy I have got from sort of seeing Mami build and flourish, and the joy of seeing Film Companion uh, just connect with people across the world. It's so incredible to build something. Until then, I'd never built anything. I'd always worked for legacy media companies, and never sort of been in the trenches in terms of actually just being a struggler and hustling every day. And I've learned to enjoy that. And it's been such a amazing learning curve, and it's kept me so energized. Like, I have not a day when I am not completely panicked by, I don't know anything. I just feel like, holy crap, I don't know this in digital, I don't know that in digital, I don't know how to do this. And that's a wonderful place to be, because you're forever a student. You don't master cinema or talking about cinema, or you know you're never an expert. You're always just somebody who's learning. And in terms of the voice, Shalini, I feel like um that's something I always, it's very important as a film critic that you bring integrity to your review. And that cannot be compromised because you know someone, or your husband works with someone, or I think then there's really no value, because like what is the point of your opinion then? So I'm never, because I'm married into the mob, I have a very deep respect for how tough it is to make movies. I know how difficult it is. I've seen my husband struggle with it. I know physically the labor it takes. Whether you make an amazing film or you make the worst film on the planet, just the labor involved in making a film is immense. So I have deep respect for it, but I cannot disregard or not bring my truth to how I felt. I can't do that. I just, I have to, and it has its consequences. I get cut off, access gets cut off, stars stop talking to you, or they will text you and very pointedly say that, this was unfair and I never expected this from you. And, those are uncomfortable conversations to have. But I just think that that's part of the job. You have to be able to deal with it.
That's so impressive. Now I'm even more impressed. Just having courage with all of this, because when you're in an industry, all of us, I mean, you're in, of course, a very visible industry, but regardless, you're always careful about, you don't want relationships to break, and you want to have a view, but you want to keep people happy, and that's an eternal struggle. That, to what extent do you voice, and to what extent do you hold back? And I just love what you've said, both about how you built this sort of portfolio career around a deep passion in cinema, and then used these different mediums to express that passion, whether it's digital or film festivals, or so that makes a lot of sense to me. Could you tell me a
But
little? Yeah,
Shalini,
yeah,
can I
yeah.
just
Go ahead.
interrupt you to say that I don't have courage. The people who make the films have courage. It takes everything to spend 2 years nurturing a story and bringing this idea in your head to fruition and to see it on a screen and then put yourself out there, put your work out there and have it be demolished in a few hours and then get up and do it all over again because you love the process. So मेरी courage कुछ नहीं है यार. My husband always tells me कि AC room में बैठ के बुराई करती है. but but those are the people. Artists are the ones with courage because they really risk something. You know, they really put themselves out there. So this is the least I can do is be honest in my assessment of their work.
Lovely. I love the other point of view that you brought. No, I think there's courage at both ends, though, Anupama. Both. I mean,
Thank
anyone
you.
who creates something and puts it out there, particularly in any kind of public forum, it's like that whole poem on the man in the arena, who gets his.
Dare
It's
greatly.
about that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
tell me a little
Which
bit
begins
about.
with Shalini, but that begins with it is not the critic who counts.
It's not the that it does. That is true. But in your case, the critic is also putting herself out there now very publicly. So tell me a little bit about FC Front Row and some of your newer initiatives. I think Readers Connect.
So the front row was really built during the pandemic. We launched it in November last year, and the whole idea was to create an opportunity for people to gather around the movies and around film artists. Because uh, uh, festivals is something I really missed, and we didn't have the Mami Film Festival last year because it was impossible to have it on ground, and we really missed that feeling of being in a theater just with other strangers in the dark and laughing at the same thing and talking about movies and this shared passion, which is what movies and storytelling is really all about. So the idea was that we would do live sessions on Zoom, and talk to artists about what they do and not make it sort of strictly promotional, which is what a lot of interviews are, where they're plugging a specific film or a project, but a larger conversation, and then have people who are admirers do participate in the Q&A, ask questions. So we created it's sort of a 2.0 version of the film society, where almost every Saturday we do events and you sign up. It's 99 rupees for the month, or I think it's about 1200 for the year. You sign up and then you just register for whatever event is interesting for you. So, for example, coming up next Saturday is Paranjit, the director of the amazing Sarpata Parambarai, a Tamil film which released last month, I think it was. And he's a superb director, and it's very exciting to have somebody like him on the front row, sort of introduce him in a way to a North Indian audience because people are now watching on OTT platforms. It's a flat world now. Everybody's watching everything. So that's the idea of the front row, that you really get to listen to people, you engage with them, you ask questions, and hopefully that in some way nourishes your love for the movies and your love for storytelling.
Lovely, lovely. And this actually leads me to my next set of questions. And most people wrote in saying that they'd love to understand what's going to be the impact of OTT platforms on the kinds of movies that are going to be made. And of course, if it impacts the kinds of movies that are being made, then who's making them, who's starring in them, etc., etc. So, what are your thoughts on what changes now that OTT has become, the platform this whole last 18 months?
I'll tell you what is exciting, Shalini. Is the kinds of storytelling that we're seeing and what has unfolded. If you look at shows like Patal Lok or Scam or Arya, really incredible storytelling that is not necessarily driven by stars, that are driven by stories rather than faces who you already recognize. So I think, and the fact that it's sort of birthed its own star system. It's birthed its own Pratik Gandhi and Jaideep Ahlawat and, brought Sushmita Sen back into the conversation. I think those are very exciting things because it's not then just about 6.5 people who can open a film at the box office. who can get you that, whatever, that 10 crore opening on a Friday. Then it's also not just about getting bums on seats on that first day. It's actually about a great story that can bring in people for years. People keep discovering your content. So in that sense, it's very empowering. Um, that it allows for new actors, it allows for opportunities across the board, it allows for uh, writers to be showrunners, to be the bosses. I mean, that's amazing, and that really hasn't even happened since the days of Salim Javed. They were the bosses back in the 70s and the 80s. But since then, we've really proceeded to marginalize writers and worship stars, and after stars, perhaps directors, which is to the detriment of, because a script is the foundation of a film or a show or anything. So I think those are amazing things. The other amazing thing for me is the fact that we are all now watching everything. Uh, I did an interview with Mahira Khan, who's a Pakistani actor, and she said to me that thank you for introducing me to Malayalam cinema. And the fact that a Pakistani actor now loves Malayalam cinema and is encouraging people in her industry to watch it is for me just incredible. And that I hope will uh, sort of encourage more cross pollination between industries. There's always been remakes since decades, but more than that, talent traveling back and forth, and not just, oh, we'll take a Tamilian actress and put her here, or take a fair skinned North Indian actress and put her in a Telugu movie because somehow that is aspirational and considered beautiful, but actual storytellers exchanging ideas. For example, Paranjit, again, he's now going to be making a Hindi film. Actors are crossing lines. Fahad Fasal, the amazing Malayalam actor, is now a pan Indian star without doing a Hindi film. Those are very exciting things. My only concern is well, I believe that in India, we will go back to the theaters as soon as it's safe to do so, as soon as we feel a degree of safety. I feel like movie going is too much in our blood. Uh, but my concern is the shutting down of those single screens. And are we going to lose those experiences? And is the big screen experience, is the theatrical experience going to only become about, um, an event movie? So the next, whatever, Shah Rukh Khan movie, of course, goes to a theater, but the smaller, more intimate drama, of course, goes to an OTT platform. I hope not. I hope we don't live in a world with such clear sort of binaries where, you only step into the theater because it's an event and otherwise you don't go. That's my only worry, because I love the theater.
No, that's such an interesting point because I think Sanjay Leela Bhansali's next movie is also going to be on an OTT platform, right?
Well, actually, he's making a series called Hira Mandi. So it is a series, but that's incredible that his vision, which is as opulent and grandiose as it comes,
Grand.
is also going to somehow be part of an OTT, and you can probably watch SLB on your mobile phone. But Alfonso Cuaron, who made Roma for Netflix, actually said that directors are talking about how they need to adapt to the small screen, and he said that's wrong. The small screen needs to adapt to cinematic visions, and I hope that that's what happens. And we've seen it. For me, these shows, Patal Lok or Scam or Arya, are cinematic in their scale, in their storytelling, and I hope we see more of that.
No, everything you're describing, it sounds like a very fertile place where there is, a lot of new opportunities, new ideas because of cross pollination. And you've spoken about how, the kind of cross pollination that's happening within Indian cinema. It's also happening, for people who are watching, for instance, K dramas. K dramas have suddenly become so popular in this last year and a half. So, do you think that the audience itself is shifting? And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question in particular. So, I've read two of your books. I've read Sholay and DDLJ. And I loved the fact that in your writing, you kept connecting the success of that movie with something that the audience wanted at the time. So, for instance, in DDLJ's case, you speak about how the movie and its maybe oftentimes simplistic outline sort of fulfilled this need in people who are trying to traverse, the the Western world in an Indian context, and what does that look like? And therefore, you speak about how the movie was so successful because it sort of met that need. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on what do you think are some of the broad contours of what people really want to see today?
It's a tough one, Shalini, honestly. And if I knew, I would be rich. What do people want to see? Nobody ever knows what people want to see, okay? Because you start a film and it's finished 2 years later, right? So there's no way to predict. And of course, these last 15 months to 18 months have been, like accelerated disruptive change. And in fact, I had asked the same question to Rajamouli, the director of the Bahubali franchise. That what happens now? So now his vision is that because people are consuming so much global cinema, so much sort of more layered, nuanced storytelling, uh, there will be a far more evolved and sophisticated audience at the end of this pandemic, right? He said to me that so if Salman Khan is taking his shirt off in a movie, the audience will now want to know why is he taking his shirt off in a movie. Okay, so you want the shirt off, but you want a reason for the shirt off. But there's as many other directors who say no, that in fact the last 18 months have been so tough for everybody in some way or the other. Whether you were ill or you lost someone close to you, or your business took a hit, or it's been just a very difficult time for the world at large. And therefore, perhaps all we're going to look for is escapism. Just have somebody come in and save the day. And I'll tell you, I see that sometimes in myself. Like I tell my daughter, God, just suggest any show where I don't have to think. you know just give me an Emily in Paris. Give me Bridgerton, where I can see pretty people in pretty clothes and I don't have to think. So it's really hard, Charlie. My sense is that we will want a bit of both.
Bit of both,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. See, because as a viewer, I'm not either or. I want the big, massive Rohit Shetty film, which is just this, colorful, overblown, star-driven vehicle, and I want a very layered, smaller, like Gili Pucci, what Neeraj Ghewan's short film, which was a
It was
stunning
very
short
nice, yeah.
film. Yeah, I want that too. So I'm greedy for everything as a viewer, and I can't imagine that other people aren't.
That's so interesting. So what you're saying is that in fact we're going to see, you know, a lot more variety of both kinds, both the, feel good, just, spend 2, 3 happy hours escaping into another world, as well as the more layered, more complex relationships or otherwise, shows. And that's going to be perhaps one of the outcomes of this. The other thing I'm going to
I
take, and
hope. I hope.
I hope. The other thing I'm going to take from what you said, I know you didn't say it exactly like that, but you spoke about the widening of, the stars system itself, because there are, you spoke about it having created its own layer of stars. You spoke about how it's created, given much more importance to writers. And I know that there was in an interview with Shonda Rhimes, she'd spoken about how, a TV series is actually the writer's medium.
Yeah.
So you've also spoken about the importance of the script. So we are seeing some of these other roles within cinema becoming more important just because of the kinds of programs that people want to watch. So we are seeing the ecosystem become more complex in a certain way, with them. So I'm going to take some of the questions.
Sure.
um, there are lots of people who are just liking this. So Stuti, hi Stuti. Stuti Ghosh is with us. So nice to
Oh,
see
how
you
nice.
here. Prashant, it's wonderful to join this session. Pradeep, great to be listening. Thank you for joining. OTT brought back customer choice, independence, and diversity in options. Shravan is saying. I think that's what you're saying as well.
Yeah.
Um, Cyril says, interesting. Afif says, happy to hear the wisdom from a 25 years of experience with compassion and a genuine smile. I agree. Shravan speaks about conflict of interest. I think he might be referring to the fact that, you're both a critic and, you have links to the movie industry. Papia, who's my co-founder, speaks about how she admires the courage to speak the truth. By the way, that's something we all admire. Uh, Shabnam says, so true, an industry where everything is based on relationships, being able to hold your view and say what you believe in is truly commendable. I agree, Shabnam. Um, Ritesh asks, what about the stereotyping in Indian cinema and the culture of restricted entries with substandard star kids getting leeway?
Well, that's honestly what this whole nepotism debate has been about for the last I'd say 2.5, 3 years. And the truth is, and genuinely, I've been around long enough that it is a far more equitable industry today than it was when I began. Earlier, there'll always be star kids, right? It is a private enterprise, and you can't tell anyone what to put their money on. So if a director wants to launch his son or his daughter, it's his money and it's his, it's all of his investment that's going in. So, but the truth is that the buck stops with the audience. So what has changed is that maybe, and this is always given as an example, that Abhishek Bachchan got, I don't know, some 6 or 7 films before Dhoom actually became a hit. And I don't think that would happen today. I don't think there's any star kid who would get that many chances. Do they get in easier? Of course, they get in easier. They will pick up the phone, and the person at the other end will take the phone call, right? Or respond to a text message, or call them in to be an AD. Of course, that foot is in the door far easier. But it's not, nobody can make a star. If it was that simple, every star there would be a star kid, and they're not. I mean, Shah Rukh is not a star kid. Amitabh Bachchan is not a star kid. There's Nawazuddin Siddiqui, Pankaj Tripathi. There's now a score of, Vicky Kaushal's father is a wonderful action director. He's not a star himself, and Vicky Kaushal is a superb actor. So I think the industry has changed massively. The directors themselves are all now people who come in from anywhere. There is no, there isn't an overt nepotism. The overt nepotism is still for people in front of the camera, because I think the people with the money still think that some goodwill of that older actor will rub off on the child. But it doesn't happen. I don't want to be rude and take names, but you all know of enough star kids who didn't make it. And the truth is that if you are talented, there is a wider shot, because also now casting directors are so important. And once casting directors are part of the ecosystem, um, you will truly have great actors coming up. Adarsh
That's a really
Goram,
good
who was
point. It's a
superb.
very good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was superb in the White Tiger. He was found through a casting director, Tess Joseph. So it's not. It used to be this kind of, pehle jab when I joined, it was wild, wild west. Okay, then it was sort of a cottage industry, mom and pop store where everybody knew each other, everyone was related to each other. But I think that's changed. That's really changed, and it is a far more equitable place now,
Yeah,
but
I
lots
would
of room
imagine.
for improvement. We are not anywhere close to to a good space, especially also in terms of just gender disparity. We need more female directors. We need more women heading studios. You need all of that. So there's a long way to go, but we're in a better place.
Yeah, and I know that in some of your shows you've spoken about this, including you've asked maybe somewhat uncomfortable questions around the gender parity, income
Of
parity
course.
for movies, and how there's still a long way to go. So I mean, I hear you saying that there's been a shift, and while star kids do get a head start, eventually it sort of evens out based on who people want to watch. And I also hear you
And
say
who's
that.
talented?
Who's talented? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and the new
because
formats allow.
and the new formats allow it. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
Shalini, the thing is, um, I'm not sure why. Maybe because Bollywood is such a high profile place. But look at this country. There is nepotism everywhere. It's in politics, it's in business. It's like literally, I think maybe sports is perhaps the only space where you can't really, I mean, what are you going to do? If your kid can't play, he can't play, right? But it is a country built on sort of parents kind of, pushing forward their children. And look at some of the star kids who are so massively talented. Look at Alia Bhatt, look at Ranbir Kapoor. Uh, are you going to say that don't give them a chance because their parents were actors as well? To me, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, I think this, I mean, I was pretty sure this question would come up just because this has been perhaps a big question of
Yeah.
the last several years for good reasons, by the way. I'm not, I mean, I think the reasons are very good.
Absolutely.
It's a relevant,
Absolutely.
it's a very relevant
Yeah.
debate. So I'm going to take,
Yeah.
I realize we're almost at the end. I'm just going to take one last question, which comes from Rangarajan Raghavachari. He asks, are film institutes relevant post-pandemic then?
That's a good one. I would like to say that yes, they are relevant, uh, but if only if they sort of have courses that teach kids to be nimble and evolve as mediums evolve, as storytelling evolves. I mean, the fact is that today we have, TikTok, and after TikTok, Reels on Instagram or Josh or any of those short form platforms. Those platforms are also creating stories and stars. You have long form platforms. So people have to be able to um, evolve with this continually shifting landscape. Uh, and I think institutes are always important because it's also very important to know the legacy of cinema, know the history of cinema, know the classics. You know, um, if you don't know the work of K. Asif or Shantaram or Bimal Roy, I think you're really missing out. I think that then it's very hard to really truly kind of get a sense of where we are today and where we've come from. And so it's very important, I think, for people to both be to have a sense of the history as well as be, sort of nimble enough to quickly pivot. And I hope institutes are going to teach that and stay relevant.
That makes a lot of sense, Anuma, because we're seeing that across fields, that while having an institution that teaches you, some of the classics or some of the received wisdom or some of the research within a field is really, really important because it gives you a certain kind of depth and familiarity with your craft, whatever that is. But at the same time, there is this challenge that things are changing so fast that sometimes it's not clear whether a particular institute is as nimble at recreating its syllabus or reinventing itself to match a world that's changing far faster than sometimes courses are.
Yeah.
So, so thank you so much. I so appreciate your coming on this show. On our show, on the Future of Work show, actually, we try and speak about what's changing in the world around us, and particularly how that's going to change, our lives and our work. And today's conversation was very interesting. It's about a topic I think so many of us in India and perhaps everywhere in the world are so passionate about. And there've been so much discussion around, what happens to movies after the pandemic? How is this going to impact the kind of movies that are being made? How is it going to impact the kind of people whose movies, whose stories get told? And audience tastes. And I really loved all that you shared. So thank you so much, Anupama, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Shalini, for having me. And thank you to everybody who joined in. I hope it was fun and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. All right. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. And if you liked us, please take a look at some of our other episodes on the Future of Work show. To see past replays, you can go to the Uncube website, and we have a page dedicated to some of our past shows. With that, thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.